Alright, this is part 5 of your lab 6. Okay, so this is the part that I want to let me bump everything down and put it on one page for you. This is the one that it's gonna I just talked to you about classes and this is probably the hardest it gets in this course with it is this last part 5 of this thing. So I'm pulling in everything, tidbits of everything that we talked about. You should be able to write a function. Remember that picture I was showing you about? You should be able to write a function. When you leave here with it, you need to be able to overload that function. You didn't have too much practice about classes or things in that nature with it. You should be able to do abstraction, write the function, do the function prototype, and call that function. But in this part of the lab, make sure you exclude your main 4 and add in a new one called main_5. What they're saying. I asked you to create an employee class that has a private field with an integer code for employee code and a data type of a char employee name. These are the two attributes or fields, and with an array size of 10 as the data member with this thing. So when we look at this thing, this is the part of the code right here, and then the second one I want you to put in is the public method. I want you to be able to write a void member function get data to input the data, and also void function to display the data. So to input the data, and also to a void function to output to display the data with this thing as well. So here we go. I'm gonna flip to the editor, the IDE. That's what we have right here. So inside of this thing, hopefully you went in and you coded the header file using namespace. The two, of course, you're familiar with is iomanip. And then I'm going to have you write your first class. I'll help you write your first class in this thing. Based on what I just shared with you, something that is private, what do you start out with is in C++, you start with the word private, and in Java too, FYI. So you start out with private, and you're going to give it an int emp employee code, okay, and then the second one you're going to give is what? Char. I asked you to give it an emp name, and we're going to make that an array size of 10. Okay. And then the second one, so that covers this part right here. Okay, that's what I just did. The second part is you're going to make a public method. To put a public method, you're going to actually come in, put a colon, and a public method you need to write what's called void function, and that's going to call what's called a get data method. And the other one's going to be void display function. Okay, so these are your two members. These are what we call as data members with this thing, and this is what you basically have is basically your attributes or your fields that you have declared and to put into this thing. Okay, so inside of this thing now you have is your class. This is your template. This is your boilerplate with this thing, your blueprint. Every employee will have a code, and you're going to have a char name of size of 10 for this thing as well. Okay, so with the data type of char, and you're going to have two functions, one's to get the data, one's to display the data. Okay, so you think of this as a read to get a data and display the data. Both of them are void function for this thing. Well, let's look at how you access your function for this thing. Notice that the class name is employee, and get data is how you access it through it, and you basically output it to the screen. So you prompt the user, store that in emp name, store that in as emp code. Okay, this emp name is this emp name. This employee code is this employee code. Now come down here, same things for display. You access the class with the particular member function that you will display, this is what you would output as your set W and the column names and everything aligned to the right side with this thing. So inside of this thing, I ask you to write an employee class to create employee array size of. So how do you write an employee class right now? Take your employee class, right? So you're gonna do employee and call it what? I don't know. Call it what I say. Emp is the array name, right? So you gotta do what? Emp, and you're gonna actually put in what's the size that I give you? 6. Okay. So it automatically puts in that. So that's how you create an employee size 6 for an array with this thing. Now inside this employee 6, you got this class that has this private and public as well. Okay, so that's how you access, and you have 2 particular fields up there you can work with as well. So I gave you the detail on this thing. Is you're going to enter the employee details in this thing, and you're going to give a size 6 that starts out, which is the range is what? 0 to 5 are the elements for each one of these things. So new employee, next line, use your employee object array to access get data method. Write the content of the array by using a get data below with this thing. So let me kind of walk you through and help you through this this first function that you have in this thing. I want you to think about in an array, you got to output is your employee name, right? And every time when you output, you're gonna what? Let's say this I is 0, so you do what? You output your first employee, which is what? That 1, right? So this is 0, so comes out as that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It adds it into with it. But more important in this thing is how do you get the data? Is where we're getting at with this thing. So you have an object called empt, right? So you use that object array as a data type pointer with this thing. So you can do emp with this thing, and the I, which is this I, which is your first position in your element, and all you have to do is put in your I. Remember how we did the other one? How do you access its methods after you have the object? You use what? The dot syntax. So in the other one we use the dot syntax. Notice I hit the dot syntax. If you notice very carefully on my screen that I have 2 methods that comes up. Gotta check the time in this thing. So I have 2 methods that comes up after I did that. I'm going to do that again for you to see. So does it ask me, do I want to display or do I want to get data? Here's my display and here's my get data. You see the 2 methods I have? Here's my display and here's my get data. Well, for this purpose I want to get data, meaning what? I want to store it into emp name and the 2 fields with it, right? So I want to do get data. My IntelliSense kicks in, tells me that this is the one you want, so I can avoid some syntax errors with this thing. And that's all I do, basically. And it stores in, remember now, this is element 0, so I store in my first position 0, store that in, get data, come up here, I increment I, add 1 to it, shows the next one, right? This shows the name, 1 is less than 6, true, come down, do whatever I need to do, get data, increment the I becomes to 2, I output the employee, the second container, and then I do this until when? Until I becomes 6. 6 less than 6 is false, and it exits the loop. Okay, so it does not complete, does not go through that last iteration. Last number of I would be true, would be 5. Okay, so this is the part that I would like for you to understand. Now, inside of this thing, you will come down. It asks you at the bottom of this thing is, I need for you to display. Again, very similar type of loop. Anytime you're dealing with a dynamic pointer, you have to use a for loop. in this particular for loop that you're going to be writing, so it's the same content, whatever iteration that you have for this right here, okay, is how you wrote it in, is the same iteration how you write it out for the same. So I'm going to snag this. One of them is to write in. Of course, there's only one statement. I don't need to use curly left and right curly brackets with the same, but I need to probably do the same thing as empt I, and I'm going to, this time, I'm going to do the dot syntax. Instead of the get data function, I'm going to do the display. I click on it, put my left and right curly brackets, left and right parentheses, and put a semicolon after it. This will display, calling this display function right here to output this particular cout statement with the same. So once I have all of this intact with this thing, I'm ready to rock and roll. So let me compile, let me save, Control S, saves, and let me do Control F5, enter. And if you can see on my screen that I can actually put in, for example, Ted and his employee number, okay, and I put in my second one, okay, I do not vote the way what you think I vote. Let's put my name in here, so that would change the pace a little bit for this thing. Of course, 6 employees would be every time it prompts that out with it. So, okay. So, and then it reads it out the second loop to display this thing. Okay, so you did that right. This is what it should look something like this. Take the screenshot of this thing, okay, and I want you to understand this is the program that actually ties everything together up to this point with. And if you can do this and have an understanding of this for preparation for 1437, I think you do really well. Thanks.